This week's Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff's Atlanta Media, Atlanta's best journalist database. Subscribe at leffsatlantamedia.com.
Welcome to another edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We are talking today with Madison Hogan, who has, we counted them up, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 hats. We should do this like where you're wearing multiple hats and you change hats every time. That'd be good. She is working for, and she'll give you this, we'll talk specifics in a second, but let's see, Cobb Life magazine, Cobb Business Journal, Marietta Daily Journal, working, kind of managing freelancers and interns for the papers, and then doing a podcast that we're going to save that for a little bit later. We'll get more into that. So good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for taking a couple of minutes. So let's start with, I think I just kind of ran through the extensive list of things that are keeping you busy 20 hours a day. But give me a little background about Madison and kind of your career and what brought you, kind of where you worked before you got to the Marietta papers.
Absolutely. So some people know this, some people don't, but I'm actually local to Cobb. So I grew up here, went to Harrison High School, if anybody's familiar, so go Hoyas. But I actually went up to journalism school up in Indiana. Nothing against the red and black or UGA. My family's from Indiana, so I'm a Hoosier at heart. So studied journalism up there. My first gig out of college was with the Island Packet and Beaufort Gazette, which is in South Carolina, Hilton Head area. So I was there for about a year doing retail, business reporting, things like that. Decided I missed home too much. I missed Atlanta. So I came back and actually worked for the Marietta Daily Journal sister paper, the Cherokee Tribune, for about 9 months, where I like to say I did a little bit of everything. So I did crime, business, government, city council, breaking news. We actually had a running joke because there was one edition, I still have it, where the whole front page of the Cherokee Tribune was all written by me. And so the running joke was, oh, today it's the Madison Tribune. So I worked there for a little bit, then worked with the Atlanta Business Chronicle for almost 2.5 years, a little bit more than that, when their Atlanta Inno branch, which is focused on innovation, technology in the city of Atlanta, startups. So I was there for a great long time, really loved it. And then the pandemic happened. So my father ran a debt collection agency and they needed some help fulfilling a position there. So we decided I would take over that role until I could find something that was a better fit for me, journalism wise. So I worked as their compliance officer for a couple months before coming back on board with the MDJ.
So let's see. So let's go through the list in no particular order. So let's talk Cobb Life magazine first. Mm-hmm. So you are the official title is editor of the magazine. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So describe what Cobb Life is.
So Cobb Life to me is a lifestyle magazine first and foremost. We focus on people, food, culture, art, travel, basically anything that you would expect from a typical lifestyle magazine, whether that's Southern living or garden and gun. We really want to produce a local Southern lifestyle magazine. And the reason I specify local is if it's not Cobb related, we won't print it. So these are very local stories. These could be your neighbors, people you work for, people you meet when you buy your coffee every day. So for instance, the latest issue that we had, the summer issue that just came out about 2 weeks ago, features Greg Lippman, right here on the cover,
there you go,
who is the head chef of Piestra, which is right here in the Marietta Square. And when my boss, J.K. Murphy, and I were talking about who we wanted to feature on that cover, we wanted a local friendly face that people are going to know, that people are going to recognize. And this man is cooking your food at Piestra, a very beloved local restaurant. Very charismatic guy. If you've ever met him, I highly recommend the restaurant as well. But that's who we're looking for. We're looking for local stories that matter to the community.
And is it monthly?
So we have changed our schedule a little bit. So in the past year, we've decided to kind of cut down on the number of magazines in order to produce bigger, better product more often, not more often, but a bigger, better product. So we produce in January, March, April. It's in April/May. This is the summer, so it's June/July. We'll have a September issue, and then we'll have a holiday issue, which is published in November, so it's the November-December issue. In between them, we also have several different products that I don't oversee. We have Fact Book, which is an advertising product. We have Forecast, which is kind of a projection of what the year is going to look like for Cobb. And then we have the football magazine, which is actually coming out in August. And our sports editor, John Bednarowski, overlooks that.
Okay. So that's good for folks to know, because I always kind of try to remind folks,
Right.
if you're looking to talk to a magazine, if you're looking to say, hey, I think I want to be in Cobb Life, you got to figure out, okay, the next opportunity is their, November issue. So you back off and you figure out, okay, I got to talk to him 2 or 3 months ahead of that, at least, right? To figure out.
So that's definitely something that that's a big part of the job that I think some people don't realize. So for instance, when we did the December magazine last year, I was having to create Christmas content in October.
In July? Oh,
in October.
Okay.
Which is so fun. Really puts the name to Nightmare Before Christmas, because I went around finding Christmas decorations during Halloween season. Now, this year, it'll be even earlier than that, because we are producing it in the early stages of November. So the deadline is going to be in September.
Yeah.
So we do work a couple months ahead. What I like to tell people is we create 9 magazine products a year. I'm involved with about 6 of them. 2 of them are advertising products, and 1 is a football product. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always tell folks, kind of think ahead.
Yes.
If you've got that holiday focus thing, then, July is June or July. It's not too soon to start thinking about it.
No,
right?
it really isn't. We always think ahead. For instance, we just finished shooting our cover shoot for the September magazine about 2 weeks ago. So that's early June that I'm doing September.
Right.
So it's never too early to start thinking about those things. We already have ideas of what we want for the Christmas cover, some features we want to do, some ideas that we have for the January issue. Another thing that I should mention is our March issue is always Best of Cobb. So some people might be familiar with our Best of Cobb contest. Basically, we accept nominations around the September, August time. We receive nominations. We release who was nominated around Christmas time. In fact, I think we always publish it on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. And then people vote for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then we release the winners with our magazine product in March.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And obviously people can find the past issues online to kind of see, hey, if I want to have a restaurant or someone that like to submit for that, they can kind of get a feel for what the categories are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. And I know, kind of from looking at the magazine and working with you guys in the past, there's a combination of different kinds of features in that magazine, but it's interesting because sometimes, as PR folks, sometimes we will have things that pop up, people are like, oh, it's, this would be great for, Cobb magazine or some Gwinnett magazine or something. So, well, that's great. But, your event is in 2 weeks and this next issue of the magazine doesn't come out for 2 months. So, kind of run the numbers here, right?
Right.
Figure out what makes it. So, it's a way to, I always use it as a way to get my clients to say, okay, think a little bit further ahead. You knew 6 months ago that you were going to do this event. So think ahead. Anyway, okay. So that's the Cobb Life. So let's talk about the Cobb Business Journal a little bit. So talk to me about kind of the flow and focus of that one.
Cobb Business Journal is a monthly newsletter. We curate news that has already been published in the Marietta Daily Journal, business news specifically that happens in Cobb. So we'll take some stories that we think are very relevant and we will put them all together in one cohesive newsletter. And we always print fresh opinion columns from our student columnists. And we always have a fresh cover story. And I write that cover story. So each month, it's my task to decide, okay, well, what's kind of like the big business news, whether it's macro across the United States, across the globe, or is it micro? It's a very specific Cobb business issue. So I'll give you an example. We've done a couple of different inflation stories because that's kind of at the forefront of everybody's mind right now. People are worried about, can I afford the gas that I'm putting in my car? Can I afford the food that I'm buying for my family? Another issue that I'm hoping to explore, and I believe the August issue. So we plan a couple months ahead, and then I let my PR rep friends know, like, hey, this is what I'm working on. If you have sources, this would be great. One story that I'm hoping to work on, I believe in August, is retirement, and focused on how do you save for retirement in an economy like this? What does retirement look like for those who have already retired or decided to resign during the Great Resignation? Are they having to go back to work? Can they afford to retire right now? What is somebody like me? I'm 26, about to be 27 years old. Do I decide to forego certain things at the grocery store in order to afford my 401k right now? So those are questions that I want to ask. And the topics to me are always going to be focused on what the local consumer is concerned about, what the local consumer wants to know. We recently had done a story on this hiring issue. So I'm sure, as many of you know, it's very hard to fill spots right now. There's for hire signs everywhere. So we did a whole story about that. And in fact, the art, I just went around town taking pictures of all the for hire signs that I had seen. And it took me about 10 minutes to find 9 different for hire scenes that we made into a little cover story block. So things like that. We recently did something about the housing market and what that looks like, especially for the local Cobb consumer. Cobb specifically, mortgage interest rates are going up. Housing cost is going up, things like that. The current story that I'm working on for the July issue is about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So where that's headed, if anybody invests in that, I'm sure you know that Bitcoin has kind of taken a turn for the worst right now. So we'll be focusing on that. But we're always looking for new ideas for the Cobb Business Journal covers. It just has to be business focused, and we do have to connect it to local. So we want local sources.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Now you did mention, and we could talk about that, business topics forever. It's a lot of, I do a lot of business kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a second about, you mentioned that you kind of coordinate freelancers and interns for the papers too. What does that responsibility entail?
So we're always looking for new freelancers. There's never a time when we're not. So what we do basically is we always have an opening. We allow people to send me their resumes and their writing samples. And especially when it comes to Cobb Life, we rely on freelancers for that content. So right now we're running an internship program. John Benarowski also runs his own internship program that's more focused on sports. So a lot of kids who are interested in sports writing come from KSU, UGA, and they work with him. We're trying to implement a very similar program, and he's been very successful what he does. We're trying to implement a similar program where we do lifestyle reporting or general reporting. So the 2 women that I currently have under me as interns are from UGA. These are unpaid internships. One of them is being paid by the Georgia Press Association, but she applies through they're the ones who cover her bill. So these are unpaid internships with the Merida Daily Journal. However, the experience is not something that you'll be able to get anywhere else. I feel like, especially if you're a local kid.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I will say that, I mean, I've been doing this in Atlanta for 30 some odd years, and I've seen so many reporters come through the Marietta papers and move on. They learn so much there, and then they're all over the place in Atlanta and other national media. The history of the paper training new journalists is really something to be proud of, and not every paper makes that effort. So it's really impressive and great to see that. All right, let's talk for a second. I know you mentioned, I'm going to tease this a little bit, that you guys have a new podcast coming out, and I'm going to I'm going to let you tell me as much as you want, and then maybe we'll come back in another episode and when it launches and we can talk about it in more detail.
Yeah, so this is a podcast that I've personally worked on. I'm very invested in it, super excited about it when I first heard about it. I won't tell you guys what the crime is specifically because I think the minute that I do, you're going to know exactly where I'm going to go with this, because the hint that I'll get is it is a very notorious crime that happened in Cobb County in the 70s. So we are exploring that crime, the people who committed it. There is a much bigger story. I can tell you when I first heard about it. So like I said, I grew up in Cobb, but obviously was not alive during the 70s. So when I heard about the crime, I thought, this is interesting. This is one of those stories where you dig a little bit and there's something under that and you keep digging and there's just more and more. And I really hope that we'll be able to show you that in our podcast. And I'm super excited for that product.
And what's the target? Well, I'll ask you, you have a target date for when that's coming out. If you're not sure, you can just say, we don't know exactly, but that's okay.
So I would say we're still in the planning stages. So for instance, actually doing a meeting today with our podcast group to decide what our next steps are, because we just finished the interview.
All right.
So my hope would be this year. That's my goal.
I'm not going to hold you to a specific date. Madison said this was going to be out in August, and now we're in September now. I'm going to get a call from JK. It's like, okay, come on. All right, so let's talk for a second. Let's get this. This is sometimes the harder questions of these little spotlights. Tell me something kind of fun and cool about Madison that people might not know about.
Fun and cool about me. Well, I think it's kind of like a quirky thing that I do, but I love to knit. So I'm actually a very, very crafty person. I think I get that from my grandmother. Apparently, my great-grandmother was very artistic and creative that way. So I love things like quilting and sewing and knitting. And I feel like something that's lost for my generation. They're not really interested in things like that.
Yeah, so. No, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so next one, I call this the lightning round. So last book you've read or the last podcast you listened to, and it can't be the Marietta Daily Journal podcast.
Okay. Last podcast I listened to, this is actually kind of a tie-in for our upcoming cover. So I am a big listener to the local Atlanta podcast Up and Vanished. And so I will hint that the person behind Up and Vanished will be on our cover for the September magazine.
All right. Favorite local restaurant?
Favorite local restaurant. Do I have to say Marietta or where I live? Because I currently live in Suwanee.
Either way. Yeah, that's fine.
So for Suwanee, I would say Hammerheads. So that's like a little seafood bar, and you would not expect to find great seafood out in the middle of Suwanee, Georgia, but it's excellent. It's cheap. You get to bring your cup home. It's great. So.
Hammerheads. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like asking that question because I find great new places to eat around.
Oh, I bet you do.
I have a long list. All right. Favorite guilty pleasure?
Favorite guilty pleasure. I think it has to be documentaries. I watch them constantly. My girlfriends keep trying to get me to watch reality TV, like Real Housewives of Atlanta, but I keep trying to tell them like my guilty pleasure is watching a docuseries. Like, I know this is a dramatization, but The Staircase, that was big on Netflix, and they just came out with an HBO series. So kind of anything crime related. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Favorite local getaway?
Favorite local getaway? Jekyll Island, 100%. I love how serene it is. I actually like that there's not as much commercial development there. Yeah.
I was there a couple months ago. It's still it's quiet. Yeah, we were there in like January, I think. And we did some biking around. It was a little chilly, but it was still a good, kind of did 5 or 6 miles around the end of it. So,
it's a great workout.
Yeah. All right. Favorite non-work hobby?
Favorite non-work hobby? I would probably have to say that's taking care of my plants. So that's another odd hobby that I have. So I have climbing roses, I have blackberries, red peppers, a lot of different succulents, cacti, ferns. I could go on. A lot of herbs.
Get my
Oh, look at that. Look at him. He looks great.
He's doing good. I have I tend to I got that guy and I got this little guy.
Oh, look at him.
He may need some water.
I love it.
My son kind of got me into succulents. He was growing them in his dorm room, and he said, "You can't overwater them, Dad. So try not to overwater."
That's why they're the best plant, because you can't overwater them. I know so many people who kill them, and I'm like, just leave them alone. Just don't water them.
Yeah, I killed one of my outdoor potted plants
Oh,
last week. I think I overwatered it. It's
yeah.
just, yeah. I'm trying to save it, but I'm looking at it now. I don't think it's savable. My other stuff is going pretty good.
Yeah.
But combined with some wildflowers, they're doing great. All right. Let's see. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that we should mention about anything you're working on or anything? I know we talked about a lot of different things.
I think like the only other big project we're kind of working on is we're trying to overhaul our Instagram. So, like I said, the young ladies that I have working for me now, in their internship are very Instagram savvy. So that's kind of something that I've never really gotten into. And so we're just exploring that. So we're always looking for new content ideas. We love to share people's news and stories. You know, maybe if it's not a good fit for the paper, we can share it in our Instagram stories, things like that. And the other thing is just we're always looking for new stories, whether that be for Cobb Life, Cobb Business Journal, the Marietta Daily Journal for the lifestyle section. We're always looking for new things. So if people just want to reach out, pitch their idea, that would be great.
Best way to get to you is it email?
Email. So it's just mhogan@mdjonline.com.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. We have been talking with Madison Hogan, who has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hats with the various Marietta-based newspapers and magazines. Madison, we appreciate your taking a couple of minutes with us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
This has been another edition of our 4 Questions Journalist Spotlight. Tune in almost every Sunday, unless I'm camping, and for another local journalist. And as always, if you're looking for our directory of Atlanta journalists, go to leffsatlantamedia.com and you can sign up there. Thanks, Madison. Thanks, everybody.